Hello again, my DIY loving friends. I'm Sarah, and this is Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. Today, I am thrilled to show you how to transform your home with Luxe Dollar Tree DIYs for elegant living. We'll be using some of my favorite crafting materials, including the ever-popular Tumbling Tower Blocks, to create stunning home accents. And this is Stassi. She loves the brown Tumbling Tower Blocks so much, she tried to eat one. It's not a joke. She really tried to eat one. I had to pry it from her clenched teeth. We're still in a fight about it, but hopefully she'll get over it soon. So what are we waiting for? Let's go DIY some elegant home decor together. For this DIY, we'll be using a grand total of 72 of the natural color Tumbling Tower Blocks from Dollar Tree, as well as the super glue wood glue, also from Dollar Tree. And to begin with, I'm making sets of 2 blocks attached end to end, and there will be 21 sets of 2 blocks that are attached end to end for this project. I'm giving you the total of the sets, even though you might not see me make that amount of sets in the video. I am giving you the count that I used when the project is completed. Next, I'm making sets of 3 blocks, but the way these sets are attached, I'm attaching 1 block on its side and then 1 block flat and attached to the middle of that narrow block on its side. That's why I'm measuring the middle of the block with this ruler. I attach another flat block on the other side of the narrow block, giving me kind of a plus sign shape with the 3 blocks, as you can see. And all in all, I'm making 8 sets of these 3 blocks in the plus sign shape, plus the 21 sets of 2 blocks. And the reason you don't see all the 2 block sets is because I had to make some modifications on things as I went along. It ended up being a little bit of a spontaneous project to make everything work together. So the totals I'm giving you are all after the fact and are accurate for the completed project. To begin assembling, I start with 4 of my 3 block sets, and I'm attaching the 4 sets together on the narrow blocks end to end. So I end up with this kind of railroad track looking set made up of the 4 sets of 3 blocks. Then I repeat that with the other 4 sets of 3 blocks the exact same way. I also have these flexible chopping mats from Dollar Tree. I measured the width of one of my 2 block sets across the mat, and I cut 4 pieces of this mat the same width as the 2 block set across, and we'll be using those later. I take 4 of my 2 block sets and I am going to attach them to one of my railroad track sets so that the ends line up with each other, as you can see right here. The railroad track set is attached to the ends of the 2 block sets. I take that second railroad track set and I attach it on the other side of the 4 2 block sets, and you can see here I ended up gluing it on top of those 2 block sets, but later on I had to remove that and reattach it to the ends of the 2 block sets like the other side. Again, this was a little bit of a flying by the seat of my pants kind of project. I spontaneously decided to add a single block to the 2 ends of my railroad track pieces to make them longer, using some loose blocks on the bottom to support the single blocks until they dried. And those 2 single blocks are included in our total of 72 blocks used. And here you can see me showing you that I moved the second railroad track piece so it was attached to the ends of the 2 block sets instead of on top of them. I take another 2 block set and glue it in between the 2 single blocks that we used to extend the length of both of those railroad track pieces, fitting it right in between them and then allowing that to dry. I mixed equal parts hot water and instant coffee to create a coffee stain, and I stained all the leftover 2 block sets I hadn't used yet, as well as a bunch of single blocks that I wanted to have on hand in case I needed to use them later. I like using the coffee stain because it creates a nice warm tone while still showing all of the wood grain on the blocks, and it also dries pretty quickly. and it smells really good if you like the smell of coffee. I use a dry paper towel to soak up any excess liquid on the blocks. Then I move on to staining the combo of the railroad tracks and the 4 sets of 2 blocks, which at this point looks much more like a rib cage. So I will be referring to it as such from now on. I coffee stain that rib cage piece on all sides, inside and outside, as all of the ends and the edges. So it's going to be totally covered with the coffee stain. Next, I take those 4 pieces of flexible chopping mat that we cut earlier. I want to glue one of my 2-block sets to the very bottom of each of the 4 pieces of mat. I decided that the best way to make that glue as invisible as possible was to use some of this Elmer's clear glue, which I'll link for you below. I apply the glue all over one side of the 2-block set and place it down on the mat at the very bottom edge, lining it up on the edge as straight as possible. And I do this with all 4 pieces of the mat and 4 of the 2-block sets. And I'm going to set them all aside to dry. I used a scissors to trim the sides of the mat that overlapped the 2-block sets, and I did that on all 4 of the mat pieces. I attach one of the mats to another by gluing the bottom block underneath the other bottom block, as you can see me doing right here. And I repeat that with a 3rd mat and block combo on the opposite side, and I'm going to prop them up so that they dry properly. I had inserted the 3 attached pieces of mat inside my rib cage piece and lined it up with the bottom blocks against the bottom of the rib cage. I used some clips to hold the mats up against the blocks to try and keep them straight while I was working. And in an attempt to keep the corners of the mats together, I thought maybe a little bit of Starbond super glue gel and the Starbond accelerator might do the trick, but ultimately, off camera, I used some small pieces of clear packing tape inside the 4 corners to hold all of those cutting mats to each other. I placed my 4th cutting mat piece inside the block rib cage, and then I attached the 4 2-block sets between those 2 sides of the rib cage, the open sides, to close everything up. And then I just waited for it to dry. I stood the piece up and I glued that loose inside mat with the 2 blocks on the bottom to the 2 inside bottom blocks on the other 2 sides, and I held it in place for the glue to set up. And even though I used the clear glue, I still didn't like the way the bottom of the piece looked on any of the sides. So I decided to cover them up with a set of 4 blocks, 2 rows of 2, glued right in the middle. And I did that on all 4 sides of the square piece. And because there was room left over on all the corners, I placed a single block standing up into each of those 4 corners for a more finished look. And as I said earlier, off camera, I had used some small pieces of clear packing tape on the inside corners of the cutting mat pieces to hold the 4 pieces of cutting mat together into a square shape inside of the wood block tower. And this is my tumbling tower block and chopping mat table lamp, and I can't tell you how long I have wanted to make those chopping mats into some kind of lampshade. And this week I got my chance. I love the square chopping mat shade look with the illuminated light inside, and all I have in there for a light source is one single battery operated push light from Dollar Tree. I love this DIY, and I sincerely hope you do too. For this DIY, we are using the brown tumbling tower blocks. You knew that we would. We're using a total of 29 of them, and I am using this miter shears I got on Amazon, I'll link it below, to cut the blocks into several different sizes. I wrote the list on the video over there, but I'll also caption the video with the different cuts to make. We're using 3 whole blocks and then 6 whole blocks plus 6 half-inch pieces of block, 8 1 1/4 inch cut blocks, and 6 small cut pieces of block that are somewhere between a 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch on the ruler. I mark the blocks with a pen and I cut them, and at the end, they look like this. To begin with, I take my 6 whole blocks and my 6 half-inch block pieces, and using this sanding block, I'm going to sand the crap out of them, basically. I'm wearing gloves because sanding off all that brown is really messy. Then I take my 6 blocks and my 6 half-inch pieces, and I glue one piece to each of the blocks, as you see right here, and then I give them some time so that they will dry. While those are drying, it's back to sanding the rest of the cut block pieces, including those 3 whole blocks as well, until everything is sanded and distressed looking just the way we want it. I had printed out this image of a wood infinity, or maybe it's called an endless knot from Google, and I placed it under a piece of parchment paper so that I could still see it. And from the middle of the design, I begin building the design using the cut-sized block pieces. I begin gluing the cut pieces together, and again, I'm starting from the middle of the design and I'm slowly making my way outward using the design as a template and kind of like tracing it with the blocks, gluing each block and block piece one by one, matching it to the correctly sized space. And although I did lose the footage, I did use 4 small wood cubes from Dollar Tree that I stained brown, and I used them as little feet underneath to attach under my knot design to give it just a tiny bit of height. And this is my lovely endless knot wood trivet, or mini raised tray, or even a large coaster. You can decide for yourself. Yet another sanded brown tumbling tower block decor design, giving us lemonade out of lemons. Easy, fast, and uses up those brown blocks. You know I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today on this journey to elevate your home decor with these Luxe Dollar Tree DIYs. I hope these projects inspired you to get creative and bring a touch of elegance to your living space. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Medicated Housewife DIY for even more budget-friendly DIY ideas. Until next time, remember that together, we're making the world a more beautiful place, one DIY at a time.